welcome to my teaching learning session, and we continue with BPCE, Industrial and Organizational Psychology with you. I am SONAL taking care of your BA courses for psychology in India. Today we continue with organizational development being one of the last few units for us, which is unit 11. We retain from where we started. We started with organizational development. Organizational development is what? It talks about development within the organization, which will develop not only individuals, the employees, but also the system which is beyond the employees, which is the organizations, the managers, the management behind the organization, and the organization in terms of small nitty-gritties, which we'll talk about its structure, its formation, its infrastructure, etc. Now, let's continue with the models of OD, which is organizational development. We have finished with Kurt Lewin's three-step model and also the action research model, which was also Kurt Lewin. For everyone to remember, Kurt Lewin has always been a very significant psychologist in the field of organizational psychology when it comes to development of it. Today, we will continue with appreciative inquiry model given by Kopender and Srivastava. In 1987, these were Indian psychologists who contributed to organizational psychology. So let's move to the further other models, which was appreciative model and general model, and then we will come to the OD interventions, which is organizational development interventions. So talking about appreciative inquiry model, the term itself talks about appreciating and inquiry, one of the two most important terms that we have. This again is a very action or research focused model. It is a collaboration of all the other models that you have. So when you speak of this model, this is going to be an amalgamation of all the other three models that we've done, which is the Kurt Lewin's model. Also, this model is very, this is very dimensionally 4D as we talk about, because when we spoke about the other model, which was Kurt Lewin spoke about refreezing, unfreezing, and the internal organization. This model of OD is a very narrative model, which was given by the Indian psychologist and had two major dimensions to it. It was also a 4D model and had two dimensions. You can remember in terms of 4Ds, like the four dimensional that they talk about are the 4Ds that we have, which is dream, discovery, design, and delivery. And 4D describe all the organizational changes as an outcome, as a cyclic process that comprises of it. So let's start with all the Ds that we have over here. Discovery is the first stage model that we have, which is description, which is just describing everything, which is discussing, inquiring, the focus, what it should be, what your development, organizational development should look like. So just discovery usually talks about description of participants, describing the details within where you're working, and also participant may be asked about instance where they thought that the customer satisfaction was apparent in opposition to customer's dissatisfaction. So that is like a description of what you're doing right now. So this is discovery. We can talk about another example. Let's take an example when we speak about appreciative inquiry model, that there has been an inquiry from a customer's side. So the first discovery is going to be, the first 4D is going to be discovering what is the dissatisfaction of the customer and what is the satisfaction that the customer is looking forward to. So this is the discovery stage. Then we come to dream. Following the discovery, the organizational members are getting to visualize the organizational ideal. So once the gap between the customer's dissatisfaction and satisfaction is inquired, after that, we are able to actually dream and visualize what the organizational viewpoint is, what is the organizational mission is. So that's something that we dream about, which I think should be every employee's thought process. They should always look through the organization's dream. After we have visualized the ideal state of organization, that this is what the mission of my organization is and this is what I need to look like, we move to the third last, which is the second last, which is design. When we talk about design is the dream is transactioned into a concrete design. Of whatever that you've designed, whatever that you have dreamt of, you are actually now doing it. So let's take an example. The mission of the organization is to build an equilibrium between customers' demand and the output which are coming from the employee. So now we need to do what? You need to bridge the gap between the dream and the final product. That's the designing, the organizational designing that you need to be doing. So after the organizational designing, we come to something which is deliver. Deliver is what you end up, whatever that you've planned, whatever that you've executed should come out as an out product, and it should be sustainable. The plan and the delivering should be very sustainable, very functional and workable, which is the last point, which is delivery or destiny. At this stage, organizational members take necessary actions in accordance to the design. So where we started with something which was description of problems, description of what has been the gap state. After that, you're able to understand the gap between the employee or the customer dissatisfaction. As an example, we move to something which is dreaming that this is the actual state of your organization or the project has to be. After that dream is complete, you move towards delivering that dream, which is the destiny, and last is the destiny, as I stated. So this completes with the appreciative inquiry model, which was given by Indian psychologists. And now let's move to one of the last model of OD, which is organizational development's last model. This is a general model of planned changes. When the other model was, very action-oriented model, because you needed to design, you needed to deliver an outcome, you needed to look forward to a viewpoint. General model of planned change is actually an integration of the three models that you've done. The Kurt-Lewin's model, the first Kurt-Lewin's model of change, then the second Kurt-Lewin's integrated model. The next that we did was right now appreciative inquiry model. An amalgamation of all those three models, which is an integration, came out as a general model of planning change. So this was given by Cummings and Worley in 2009, and as we say, it's an integration of all the three models, the planned change. And this is talking about a planned change, not something that suddenly comes in. This is talking about changes which is eventually planned as an yearly thing, which always will be a part of your organizational planners. So the planned change can be obtained by 4 stages. Even this model comprises of 4 stages, which is entering and contraction, diagnosis, feedback, planning and implementation, which is last taking up to evaluation and institutionalization. I'll repeat it again. The 4 stages that Worley and Cummings gave as an integration of the above 3 models was entering and contraction, which is moving in. Then there is diagnosis and feedback, which is finding out what's going wrong and providing a feedback of how it is going. Planning and implementation, this is like the more functional and the more action-oriented stage. And the last is evaluation and institutionalization, which I feel is a check at the final stage. So let's understand stage by stage. Entering and contracting. This is the first stage that we talk about, the first set of activities that the organization must engage in. Also, these helps in developing a very deeper understanding about the organization. Like it require, what kind of changes does the organization require? Has these changes ever been a part of the organization? So when we talk about the first stage, the more that you look forward, the more that you engage in this process, you look into the changes that are required, the more that you as an individual have a deeper understanding about the organization. Also, by the entering term, the entering the organization, it means the activities such as data gathering or joint discussions, decision making, finding out the resources which are required. So when we speak about this first stage, the more that you engage, the more that you identify, the more that you discuss and goal set, the deeper understanding you will have about your organization. Also, you need to find out at this stage, the first thing that you will observe is your members of the group are going to agree and disagree for the changes which are decided. So let's take an example. Even if there's a plan change that every month of April and May, there is going to be recruitment, there might be some disagreements here. So as soon as the member starts discussing, starts jointly coming together to a decision, you might find little disagreements. Secondly, there would be limitation because the resources might not be there. So let's take an example. During the year of pandemic, the organization is again looking forward for recruitment in the month of April. But we all know that during pandemic, finding good recruits and providing opportunities to good recruits was very dicey at both the ends. So speaking of that, there were resources which is falling short. And finally, it may be recognized that what are the more feasible option that needs to be taken into consideration for the plan change. So when you look at the first stage actually talks about entering, finding some disequilibrium in the beginning, then finding out your resources, and then settling up for a plan change. so which is contracting and end up being contracting that this is the alternative, decision that we should be taking. So this is entry and contracting, the first stage when we talk about the general planning model. Now, let's move to the second, which talks about diagnosis and feedback. At this stage, you'll find that the effort is made to understand the current state of the organization, such as their best practices, what are the root problems, what is the best way we can, eliminate the root problems, what is the plan of change that could be identified. So once the discussion, the carrying out, the expectation, the resource management, if the plan change is possible, is all decided, that comes the diagnosis and the feedback, which is understanding that what is the current state of the organization and does the change is really, really possible at this point of time. So we outline the plan of change. So we try to visualize that will this plan of change at this moment really fit in to the organization or not. So that is diagnosing, identifying problems. And then feedback is being able to, get back to the cycle that, okay, we feel that we will be able to do the plan change. We will be able to recruit employees in the month of April like any other year, even during pandemic. But the number is going to be less. So the alternative is not going through again 20 employees again, but only the number that is required. So feasible alternative, that's like the diagnose and the feedback coming to you. That's the second stage as we decided. Then we come to planning and implementing changes as the third stage. And the last is going to be evaluating and institutionalization of the change. Let's move to the third stage that we have. Planning and implementation of change is completely based on the result of the diagnosis and the feedback that we have given. So if the organization and the manager and the practitioner did find out a workable plan, that plan will now be executed. So as I said in the last example, if we find out that we need to cut down on the number of recruits, we cannot take in 20 recruits like any other time, and we just bring in like 5 recruits. This is the time a lot of questioning to the vision and the plan of change is going to happen. That is the organization ready to make this change? How current capacity of the organization and managers and members are at the moment? How is the power distributed in the organization? Will the organization, happily and feasibly be able to take in this change of recruits during pandemic and training them online? So this is the stage where planning and implementation brings about a lot of questions about the vision of the organization, the current status of the organization, the incorporation of the changes that we want to do. So it's the implementation and identifying, is the implementation possible or not? Now moving to the last stage of the general model. This talks about evaluation and institutionalization of the change, which is you put in the change, you have already done the application, but now we need to find out, has the change been really fruitful? Has the change been really useful for us? That's the evaluation, which is the final stage. The effects of interventions are evaluated. The change is managed persistently. So we bring in the new employees, we recruit them, we see if the new employees are able to adjust in the organization, we check if their performance is up to date or not. And this is also, the last stage is also considered a kind of a feedback where we are evaluating and institutionalizing everything so that the result that we get in can be checked, that is the result really beneficial, and adding to the first part, the vision of the organization. We started with the vision of the organization, like entering the organization and identifying what's the vision, how the organization is able to do. So we come back as a cycle to the first one. During evaluation, we check out that is the result that we are getting, is it matching to the vision of the organization? So is it really the change that we require? And if you find that the evaluated results are not good, we suspend it, we plan a change again. But if it's good, we continue and keep updating it. So updating is if you've recruited people, they're good employees, they're hardworking ones, they have adjusted already during pandemic, you start training them. You start providing them a lot of training. You do this whole entire process of change that you do every year online. So see, this is how the general model works. General model work, yes, it is more action oriented. It seems more workable and more identifiable in the organization system now. Because as we see, let's go back to the image to have a run through. You enter of changes, talking about the organization, its contraction, what all changes can we do. We start diagnosing and providing feedback. We get something in hand as a diagnosis. We realize, okay, this is something which is can be implemented, and implementing change. And the last is evaluation. Evaluation is always a check that the change that we have got about, is it worth the organization's mission? If it's not, it would be suspended. If it is good, it would be modified and updated. So that completes with the general model of OD, which is organizational development. Now, let's move to Unit 11's fifth part, which is organizational development interventions. So, what do we understand by interventions? These are programs that are developed through planning to solve the organizational problem, or it will support the organization to move ahead its ladder. So, it's like scaling heights. It would be programs that will support you there, or it's going to be just solving problems for you. So these are also in a three-level thing. You will not find intervention that only looks towards the organization. It will look towards at the individual level. It will look towards the group level, and finally, there would be interventions that would be working towards the organizational level. So as I said, there are three multi-level, intervention that will work. One is the individual level. Individual level usually is the employee level. It's employee or the manager or the boss or it is the two-way thing. When we talk about the group level, a group at a go, and the last is the organization level. These interventions were again given by Cumming and Worley at 2009, along with the last model that we just discussed. So now the first that we are going to talk about are the human processes interventions. These are more focusing to the people of the organization. So when we are talking about the people of the organization, these will be morely individual level of interventions, and group, which is capitalizing the goals of the organization. So these interventions are mostly individuals and group level interventions, which are programs that are going to support the vision of the organization and programs that are going to solve the problem of the organization. So these are some group level that we are going to talk about, and individual level both, which is team building, process consultation, work design, intergroup relationships, total quality management, high involvement organization, and organizational confrontational meeting. We will do them step by step, one on one. So human processes, I said, as it's going to focus on the people of the organization, both individual and group level of interventions that we talk about. Let's start with the first one. The first, as a group and the individual level, is a process consultant, which focuses on the group dynamics, the interpersonal relationship of the organization. The objective of interpersonal consultant is to guide the members so that they could get their skills to solve the problems. So this is to support the members of the group together, to help them identify that as a group, what is best that you can solve in your own problems using your own skills. So see, it's both individual and both group level, but as it is looking towards the group dynamics, it focuses on group. So it is inward. A process consultant will actually tell you how you can use your own skills to solve the problem of the organization or your own problems. Now, after process consultant, we have third-party intervention. This is particularly aimed for the interpersonal relationship issues that come in and crop up. And this is very similar to the previous form of intervention, but it solves not the problems within, but it solves the problem within the group, which is conflict, disputes that sometimes creates some sort of up and down in the dynamics of the organization. So a third party intervention would be those. However, when they talk about extreme, when they become extreme and start affecting the group functioning, a third party intervention is extremely beneficial. So this is aimed to take care of the interpersonal relationship. It is also to take care of the organizational dynamics to be settled, which is again, it's group and individual both. So its whole sole purpose is to do what? Take care of the disputes and conflicts of the organization. Now, and third party is extremely beneficial when things go out of hand and the two people are not able to manage it through process consultant. Third party is one of the best way to solve the problems. Now moving to the third one, it's team building. Team building, as the term suggests, it talks about why the team is so having some difficulties, what's going wrong with the team. So these kind of interventions, team building becomes possible so that you're able to diagnose the interpersonal problems within you, derive solution, who is not able to work properly, why there are disputes within the team. So a lot of team building supports one another, which will resolve all the conflicts. It's quite crucial when the team is not willing to work together, when the members dislike one another. I feel a team building at that point of time, interpersonal processes, diagnosis is going to be very fruitful and identifying solutions at that time. Also, during team building, a third party intervention can also be useful. So, during a team building, when the entire team is planning to work together, but few members are not happy with the solution, or probably not happy with the way the team is going, and it becomes very difficult to manage. At that point in time, team third party intervention is extremely beneficial. Let's move to the next. The organization confrontation meeting. So here that the organization members diagnose a problem. So let's take an example. We have diagnosed a problem and set an actionable target. The working collaboratively on the issue. So this is like the organization sits together, confront the problem, diagnoses the problem, take out solutions, and look forward for implementation of those solutions. This is extremely helpful, but I also suggest confrontation should only be on those issues which are workable and can have actionable targeted solutions. Conflicts, which are something which is very very common in organizations, is talking and speaking of one another's. And if there's a lot of politics and a lot of cross conversation which is happening from one group members to other group members, confrontation could lead to bigger fights. At that point, again, as I say, team building and third party intervention should be first used and then come down to confrontation. When the problem gets a little manageable, people are ready to speak about it amicably. That's the time, calmly, that's the time we should use an organizational confrontation meeting. This is extremely helpful when the organization is collectively experiencing stress, as I said, and immediate problem solutions solving is required. So as I said, it should only be taken in consideration for individual and group levels when the group does not have major dislike for one another. So if they have major dislike for one another, third party intervention and team building should solve that and get it towards the confrontation. I believe this method is extremely favorable for an organizational level, which is when the organization is having setbacks, not looking forward to solutions. This is the time all the members can sit together and discuss that why the organization is not reaching towards its goal. Now let's move to the other. Intergroup relationship. This intervention is just aimed for enhancing the intergroup relationship or interdepartment relationship. Very simple one, as I talked about as an intervention. Few more intervention in the human processes are large group intervention. This is about spreading awareness, having a larger group meeting, like the entire organizations gets together. So I feel this large group intervention usually happens during a session beginning of or a near beginning of the organization. So when we talk about April and March is usually a beginning for a lot of organization, not only in the educational setup where children move from one session to the other, but also organization associated to finance and management see their year beginning at this time. So I feel April is one of the year beginning for all the most of the organization. So this large group intervention could be when the entire organization is sitting together for a large meeting. So where all the stakeholders come in together for ideas, comment that what could be some next year plans that we could look forward to. So this is large group interventions. Now, moving to a few more interventions that we have, which is called the techno-structural interventions. So human processes interventions, we're talking about individual and group level, mostly group level interventions. This is technologically aided intervention, which is called techno-structure. Focuses on the technical part of the organization, and also the structural part, like task methods, also the job design, its structure, what does the job design looks like. So if we talk about, it's a simple thing, a job profile of a person. So what's going to be the structure of the job profile of the individual? So if the organization is looking forward to a big post, then the techno-structural interventions will come into play. For example, organization hierarchy, division of work, all of this comes under techno-structural intervention. So techno-structural interventions are broadly categorized under the principles of obviously psychology, engineering, and sociology. Why psychology? Because it talks about study of human mind and behavior. Engineering because of technology, and structure because of sociology. The stratification, all the categorization is supported by sociology. That's why this intervention is aided by all of these big three subject categories. Now let's start with the first one. Structural design. This is the first techno structural intervention, which is called the structural design. This intervention is to do with the division of work and how tasks are specialized. So, a structure of how the task should look like. More like if you've designated somebody as a manager, their division of work, what all they need to be doing and what all is under their job profiling. So, that is the structural design. Then there is downsizing. Many organizations using downsizing is laying off personnel and redesigning the organization, outsourcing some kind of work, and to minimize the cost and bureaucracy. Which is, at times you want to conduct a workshop or probably want to conduct a session of motivation. So rather than hiring somebody which stays in, you cut down the cost. So what are you downsizing, cutting down the cost by hiring somebody outsourcing for a minimal amount and for number of classes. I feel this is something a lot of us do in an organization where something is not inbuilt in an organization, we end up outsourcing it. So when you outsource this, you minimize the cost because you don't have to pay it for the entire 365 days or 12 months of the year. You only pay them till the time that they're working and functioning. So that is something which we talk about as downsizing. And the last is re-engineering. In this intervention, a very radical redesigning of the organization takes place. These processes usually are, collaboration of various kinds. Collaborations which we do with our organization to enhance our task, to enhance our brand value. Again, this is completely revamping your organization. It's a redesigning which will involve both sociology, psychology, and engineering into it. Because you need to have a better look to your organization now because you're redesigning it technologically and psychologically. It should be benefiting everybody. It should look very appealing to the people outside and collaborating influences which are beneficial to your organization. So that is something that we talk about is re-engineering in the entire organization. So this finishes with techno-structural interventions, and this is like an interventions, glimpse at one go. We did human process interventions. We did some techno-structural intervention, which is technologically aided. We are going to do HR management interventions also, and there are some strategic change interventions. Strategic change interventions are very similar to the others. It is transformational change or continuous change or trans-organized change, which is usually strategic changes is changing strategies. Are you building strategies to transform? Is it strategies which are continuing from one year to the other, or trans-organization from one set of system to another set of system? So that is strategic change. Now, let's start with the HR, the human resource management intervention that we're going to talk about. So the first few are goal setting. Goal setting is something that tries to coming people at a common ground, get to personal goals or institute goals with the organization. Goal setting is one of the most easiest form of human resource interventions. Then we have performance appraisals. Again, the appraisal needs to be good. It should be very performance related. It should be, on the basis of your performance, its strengths and weaknesses, and your opportunities and achievements. So it should be very fair also. After this, we come to reward system. This is again an intervention to support solutions and to upgrade your organization using the correct kind of reward for the correct kind of, group. For example, somebody needs a salary hike. Somebody don't need a hike, they need an extra perk. Somebody would be satisfied with only a job title. So right kind of reward system for the right kind of people, which is satisfaction and performance, both would be aided by this. Reward systems should be so efficient that it not only gets you a better out product, but it also hikes the performance of the entire organization. So here we are not just looking forward to the satisfaction of the organization, but we're also looking forward to the satisfaction of the employees at the same time. Now, moving to next, there is strategic interventions that we spoke about. These interventions are something that bridges between the internal working of the company and the external environment. So strategies are something that brings in the old and the new together. It integrates, tries to transform your current work areas. If not transforms, it tries to continue the same kind of pattern in the system. So these are strategic interventions that we have. So the first out of the strategic intervention is integrated strategic change. So integrated is something which is an amalgamation of a lot of strategies, change that needs to be enforced at business strategies and system of organization at the same time. So what do? You make sure that you respond to the external need of the business and the internal needs of this business and the organization setting. So integration would be taking the best of both worlds, getting it together. Then, moving to the next, the cultural change. This is an intervention which is used to develop stronger organization culture. So these are strategies which would strengthen the norm system of the organization, values and the behaviors and belief systems. So if there's any event, if there's any user event in the organization, try and getting back the culture of the organization, like making everyone dress according to the code, making everyone wearing the logo of the organization. So these are, rebuilding the organization culture. So this is something which is another very forceful, I feel, a strategic change under the strategic intervention. Then we have merger and acquisition. When it merger and acquisition talks about when it makes sense of multiple organization, we just merge together new ideas, brighter entity, major stronger collaborations together to make a better organization. So a stronger organization can also comprise of smaller and struggling ones. So this only talk about, whenever, let's take an example, you become a better organization and you plan to merge with another smaller organization which you feel have a brighter future. So you have a merger between the two. Or probably if not merger, you acquire their stakes and their shares and you take over that company. So these are simple strategic ways of enhancing the brand value of your company. What are interventions by the end? Interventions at different level, human resource level, at strategic level, technological level, and human process levels are going to solve the problems of the organization and of the individuals working within the organizations, benefiting both at the same time, also upgrading the level of your organization. This completes with all the interventions that we had, and let's do again a quick, glimpse of the intervention through the picture. So when we spoke about OD intervention, we had some human resource which talks about team building, intergroup relationships, in group interventions. We talk about third-party interventions, individual interventions that spoke of. Moving to HR, HR is talking about wellness intervention, obviously performance, reward systems, salary hike, developing of talent, some talent show that happens in the organization and you get priced for it, etc. Then we have technologically aided, it's job enrichment, it's a work design. It could be an entire organization, which is strategic organizational design, and a total top quality management. Speaking of strategic, it could be transforming, it could be culture, also it could be merger and acquisition, which is taking over other companies and merging with the other companies. So these interventions will not only look forward to just, supporting your organization, but it will also support and solve problems of the individuals in the group level in the organization. These interventions, as being the last of the unit 11, completes with the unit 11, which is organizational development and strategies for organizational development. Now let's move to the unit 12, being the last for organization and industrial psychology. This talks about positive organizational development behavior. So when we talk about organizational psychology, merging positive psychology was something which was strongly advocated by Martin Seligman, and positive psychology was also supported the organization at this point of time. So what are the objective of this unit? This unit is going to talk about what is positive psychology and positive organizational behavior. It's going to define some component of positive organizational behavior. It's going to discuss the relevance of the 4 components that we have of organizational behavior, which is self-efficacy, optimism, hope at workplace, and resilience. And at last, we are going to talk about something which is emotional intelligence. Emotional intelligence nowadays have started been supporting workplaces at a greater level. Emotional intelligence is as equally important as the level of intelligence that we have within ourselves. So let's begin with what is positive organizational behavior. According to Luthans in 2002, they stated that the study in the application of positively oriented human resource strength and psychological capacities that can be measured, developed, and effectively managed for performance improvement in today's workplace. So, what is positive organizational behavior? Anything which is oriented human resource that not only strengthens your performance capacity, but also supports your psychological capacities effectively. So you develop, you evolve, and by the end, that chain comes back to your work organization. It improves the performance of you and your workplaces. So that is by Luthans in 2002. Also, what is positive psychology? As I said, it is a brainchild of Martin Seligman in 1999. Also, it was supported by Luthans and its colleague in 2004 for further other researches in USA. Also, there are three levels of positive psychology if you talk about. Valued, obviously, it will look into what all according to Seligman. Valued subjective experiences. It talks about positive individual traits and civic virtues and institution that moves the individual towards a better citizen. See, positive psychology will not only in an organization look forward to your experiences or beneficial of the positive trait or organization system, but it makes you a better citizen, a better person. So always remember, whenever you're a part of the organization, there are some skills that you're upgrading. That upgrade should be at both the levels, at your performance and at your psychological level also, according to Luthans and Martin Seligman. So these are three major what do you call this, levels where positive psychology works. It works as civil and making you a better citizen, works at your subjective experience, and obviously at your positive traits. Now let's start with the four major important factors of positive organizational behavior that involves a component called psych cap. Psych cap is also known as has shown a positive correlation between employee attitudes, behaviors, and performance. So, psych cap are the positive psychological components that you will find in an employee in an organization. So, positive psychological capital focuses on positive aspects that not only takes care of cognitive processes but also human resources and motivation, striving for success for better result in workplace. So, the psych cap, the components, not only will take care of your cognitive processes but also performance, your workplace performance, and also your human motivation. Human motivation is to making you driven towards goals, making sure that not only taking care of organization's achievement but also individual achievement at the same time. Now, moving towards the psych capital, the psych cap that they talked about as components, what are they comprising of? Let's learn them as an acronym of HERO. H stands for hope, E stands for self-efficacy, R stands for resilience, and O stands for optimism. So the psych cap in the positive organizational behavior talks about HERO. So let's begin with E. What's self-efficacy? Self-efficacy is the confidence of an individual, a perceived ability of how to achieve a particular goal. Or also in a simple word, self-efficacy is an ability to have a control over your outcomes and performance. So I'll give you a simple example. You've been given a project and you've given a deadline. A person who comes up with a thought, yes, I'll be able to do it within the guideline, and we'll come up with great, alternatives and results, not one but many. That's self-efficacy. Your perceived, control on the performance is called self-efficacy. Then we have hope. Hope is, I feel it's a very middle way. People feel it's just psychological. I feel it's not only psychological, it also physiologically adds to an individual's willpower, power to do and power to hope, which is to have that, sense of inbuilt strength that this will go on or this will be staying there. So it's an interaction between two processes, mainly agencies and pathway. Agencies within you, pathways the direction. Then we talked about optimism. Optimism is usually being and remaining positive and also looking towards positive likelihood of personal success, looking forward to internal external factors that adds on to more positive aspect and more positive side of any outcome. So may it be external factors, whereas be internal factors. No specific, nothing is specific and fixed, but you're still very positive about it. A very positive outlook towards situation is optimism. In simple ways, resilience is a positive way of coping through challenges and difficult situations. It's a very bouncing back feeling. Resilience is always a dynamic change, developmental dynamic change, which makes you always bounce back through problems, through struggles, through difficult times. So it's a positive way of coping when it seems that there is no solution to the negative outcomes. So hope, self-efficacy, resilience, and optimism is the PsyCap's four dimensions that we talk about. This was given by Peterson, H.J. In 2011. Very, very recent, I feel, these four components of PsyCap are. Now, let's understand these things in all of these components of PsyCap individually. Self-efficacy, also when I said it's an ability to have a control over one's performance. Remember, Albert Bandura's theory is also associated to something which is self-efficacy. Albert Bandura's social cognitive theory explained how environment, your personal cognition, which is your personal thinking, reasoning, and problem solving, your behavior interact with with other to determine the overall response. So, according to Albert Bandura's theory of self, he also mentions that self-efficacy is a combination of how the environment, the personal cognition, and your behavior interacts with the environment and results to it. Another definition which was given by Luthans and Starkovic was referring to individuals' conviction about his or her abilities to mobilize the motivation, cognitive action through the course of action needed to succeed in a simple way. So, rightly self-efficacy does talk about your control over your abilities, your conviction about your abilities, not only about how well will I do do the task and the action, but also how well will I execute that task and what is going to be the result. So, it's ideally a very high control over your performance, a very good ability, both cognitively dwelling and motivatingly dwelling. So let's. What are some major sources of self-efficacy? If someone wants to learn self-efficacy or build in those self-efficacy in their organizations, what are that's going to be? Mastery experience. Mastery experiences. Mastery in a specific experience actually alters your self-efficacy. Simple example. If you feel that you are able to do task A better than task B and you select the task A, I'm sure your feeling of mastery, your self-efficacy is going to be very stronger and positive about it. Also, when you are given something by your organization to complete, let's take an example. You have never been leading a team, never trained a team, and you've been told by the organization to train the team. Remember, this can cause a low self-efficacy because you do not have mastery over that experience. So it might make you feel a little doubtful about your ability to control your performance. So that is low self-efficacy. That's how mastery experiences build in that confidence and makes you very sure about yourself. Then we have vicarious or modeling. Obviously, sometimes individuals learn through through copying behaviors, modeling behavior vicariously, that behavior getting rewarded, and every small changes in your behavior getting rewarded, which is observational learning. So yes, self-efficacy can also be learned by observation people and gaining a mastery over it. Then social persuasion. When an individual is given a proper objective feedback about what they are doing is correct or incorrect, that actually provides a lot of positive appreciation about their work. They feel good about what they're doing is correct, and that's actually adding on to their efficacy levels. Then we have another emotional cues. Individuals who are very emotionally balanced tend to be more, tend to have higher self-efficacy than individuals who are always overthinking, always having a very negative outlook about themselves. So people usually succeed if they are psychologically, emotionally stable than people who are negatively thinking about themselves most of the time. So that is emotional cues that we have. So these are some sources of self-efficacy as we spoke about: mastery experiences, vicarious experiences, verbal persuasion, and affective state. That completes with sources of self-efficacy. Now, let's understand is what is the need of self-efficacy in positive organizational psychology? Why do we need it? See, apart in the clinical and counseling psychology, self-efficacy does support in the organization system also. For selection, knowing the self-efficacy of the individual will make you have a better understanding that this person is best for this task and this goal. So when you know that this person is highly motivated, you usually would give them what kind of role? Leadership roles, which comes to the next point. So people who have good self-efficacy, has positive perception about themselves, positive control about their performance, are usually better leaders. They perform better. They're able to control their behaviors and their action and thought process. So they are likely to be better leaders. According to Bortas in 1982, job competency is an act as an underlying characteristic of an individual that results in effective in any job, which is very true. According to Bortas, job competency is also another factor which is supported by self-efficacy. So if you have good self-efficacy, your competence for that job is also higher, and you are more likely to perform that job better than anyone else. Then, moving to another need, which is training and vocational counseling. There are many other implications of self-efficacy about this. People higher in self-efficacy are better trainers,
because they know what to speak. They can make a lot of use their experiences as mastery over conviction. They can use their experiences, achieve better goals in an organization. Performance appraisal goals initiative, which is people with better self-efficacy, and feel will be better praised, will be showing better performance, will get good incentives and good achievement. So the ones who know that I can perform this task well is going to achieve that task better. And group organizational performance, obviously working in an organization requires an overall good self-efficacy. You should be knowing what is something that you can perform individually and group wise well. The better that you know about your abilities, the better your performance is going to be, both in individual and group level. And organization usually looks for employees who are very high on self-efficacy. That completes with self-efficacy, and we move to hope. Hope is usually, yes, as we talked about the psych caps component, something which is more self-initiated, goal-directed motivation and behaviors. Hope again is something that is to do which determines that will be able to achieve a goal. It's both a drive and a self-initiated behavior within you. So it's both inward and outward. So if we say it's both an agency which is internalized controlling you, which is determining your behaviors, determining your motivation, but also at the same time making you able to push yourself. Your willpower is so high because of that motivation and self-initiated goal-directed behavior that you accomplish goals. So see, hope works both inward and outward. It's a two-direction thing. Now, some of the characteristic of hope is hope involves both willpower and way power, as we just spoke about it in the definition itself. People who consider themselves as self-driven, we can do it, we can perform better, are considered both unidirectional, and when they feel such things about themselves, their willpower, their power to work together makes them move, which is makes them solve problems, achieve goals, play essential role because of that hope. Then hope is a type, is a state type, not a characteristic. So people stated it's not an attribute of a personality. It's relatively enduring state type, which is a mindset. It's not an attribute. So it's not an attribute of your personality. Ideally, it's a type and enduring mindset that you have. It's more transitionary stage, which is very true. We need to know hope does not end up being very permanent. It can be a transitionary state which moves from one level to another level, can be managed, can be put in people also. Then hope is again, it's quite validly measured. People say as it's a type, it can be measured. There is also an example of a scale. Adult dispositional hope scale was given of 12 items, and it reported that hopelessness trait of an individual. So it measures hopelessness trait of an individual. So it finds out if you really have that hope in yourself or not. It is a 12 item thing, which is 12 question, adult dispositional scale. Then another characteristic of hope is role of hope and goal setting and empowerment, which is very true. The more that you are both willpower and way power, the better you are going to be, involved in decision making. Better establishment of goals will take place. You'll have better decision making. You'll have better goals in place, and once you have that goal, you'll be more determined to achieve that goal. So it will lead to goal achievement and obviously empowerment. As we spoke about, once the goal is achieved, it keeps you more positive. Hope keeps you on a positive outlook, and it will make sure that you empower not yourself but also around yourself, people around you. So see, when we talked about hope being willpower and way power, it usually answered most of the characteristic. Yes, when it is moving also and making people move, it will empower you also and empower others, which will keep you motivated. You will set goals for yourself, empower yourself and others too. So these are some characteristics why hope is one of the most important, characteristic of psych cap, which is psych capital. Then let's move to the third, which is optimism. Positive psychology is an overall growth of an individual. Seligman and Schulman in 1986 stated and found that optimistic insurance agents were performing better than pessimistic insurance agents, which is very true. Keeping that optimistic outlook of your situation will make you reach goals better than other people. So being more optimistic will keep you more balanced, emotionally stable, happier, and will make you mentally and emotionally fit. And the more emotionally mentally fit that you are, the better is going to be your overall growth in an organization. So let's move to some characteristic of optimism. Optimism as a human nature. Yes, early philosopher did state it that optimism can be something which that you're born with. It's a human nature. It's embedded in people. It's both a part of you and a cognitive component which supports you later. So it's like a human nature. Early philosopher and psychologists that. Uh, also considered that optimism as a difficult concept to incorporate in reality. So some psychologists stated that it's a very difficult thing to learn. So some people are actually having it as a nature and always stays like that. So yes, maybe that could be true. The nature nurture conflict. Are we really born with it or it's an environmental thing? So psychologists and psychiatrists stated that we're not born with it. It's difficult to incorporate. It's a human nature that we have it already. Then optimism as an individual difference. That's very true. It's not something which is permanent. Some people can have it, some people cannot have it. Some people's personal life tragedies might make them pessimistic, and some people's life tragedy makes them positive all the time. So yes, it is external. It can be internal also. It can be temporary. It can be situation specific. Another, optimism at workplace and self-efficacy. See, we need to know that optimism and optimistic person usually attract a lot of good goal setting. They tend to change that negative external factors into positive. So the optimism is developed in opposite to learned helplessness. There was a concept of learned helplessness given by I think it was given by Martin Seligman only. Yes, it was given by Martin Seligman. He focuses on the concept of positive aspect of situation and positive aspect of the outcome of the situation. So learned helplessness is a complete opposite of optimism. This was an experiment done by Martin Seligman only of having a dog within a cage. You can read about it also. It was an amalgamation of classical conditioning and instrumental conditioning. We've done this in learning also. So the opposite of optimism was learned helplessness that develops in people. If they're very pessimistic, they learn that they cannot do anything. So like a child who feels that no, I cannot perform maths ever, maths is very tough. What happened? Even if they've done well, they will not be able to perform well. Why? Because of the helplessness that they have developed in themselves. That finishes with helplessness, and let's move to resilience. Resilience, as said, let's talk about the modern definition of resilience. It is advancing, which is goal directing, being able to positively cope up with your environment proactively, not waiting for adversity but solving them, and by and large, taking up all the challenges and being able to succeed. So resilience, the major concepts are resilient. What do we need to do to become resilient? Develop those resilient qualities, a positive support system, personal, look towards your personal success, understand and cope with the stressors and change, identify, fortify, and enrich your positive factors. So identify which are good factors, fortify them, stick to them. And the last is identifying your motivational factors, what drives you, what keeps you upbeat, identify them and work towards it. So when we speak about resilience, resilience always will have all of these things advancing despite adversity. So see, the modern definition is such a complete factor of resilience that we have. So that speaks about identifying your qualities, your motivational factors, looking towards your successes, and being able to move ahead in adversity all the time. Now, ways to improve resilience at workplace. We really need to do that because there are a lot of problems that keeps coming at workplaces. Share strategies using positive emotions. Uh, Friedrichsen also stated in 1988, which was a strategy by him, that we should always strategize using positive emotion. You should always be looking forward to goal setting, solving problems with a positive ideation and positive emotion. That will lead to better strategies. Then strategies using self-enhancement, which is enhancing, obviously, resilient people are confident, they're more positive, and they are more empowered. So if you want to be more resilient, you need to develop these self-enhancing, traits within you. Then, speaking of next, using attribution. Never use negative attribution for yourself. Attribution is reason behind your behaviors. Involve perception and inferences that people who focus on negative events tend to blame themselves and they become resilient. I feel a lot of children also when they're going for an organization and recruit, they always end up saying, I cannot do it. I'm not fit for this job. This is how you're attributing your interview negatively. You'll be lower in resilience. The lower in resilience you are, the lower you'll be in self-efficacy and the person will not hire you. what you need to do, what are my positive outcomes that could be. I will be good at what I'm doing. I would be one of the best. I have these qualities within me, and I need to focus on them. So rather than focusing on the negative, please focus on your positive events. That is positive attribution. The last is using the strategies of hardiness. This strategy was given by Kobasa. This is a very self stress management, hardiness perception, which consists of high commitment, high control, and challenge. So, looking at problems as positive expectation, challenge, being able to control your situation, and being committed to them. So, commit to your goals until they're not complete. That's what is continuity and persistence. In every job, everyone would want an employee which is high on resilience, optimism, commitment, control, and obviously efficacy. That completes how you can develop resilience in yourself. So you advance despite all the adversity coming by using positive emotion, positive self enhancement terms to you, attribute yourself positively, and become more hardiness. So that completes with resilience. One of the most important to complete today's uh, unit of organization environmental psychology is emotional intelligence. Emotional intelligence was a concept which was given by Salvoy and Mayer in 1990. It has been a recently developed concept, emotional intelligence itself. Emotional intelligence, according to Salvoy and Mayer, was an ability to manage and recognize other people's emotion and further use those recreation to control your own behaviors. So this was Salvo and Mayer's concept, and this has recently been added to workplace. So the capacity of recognizing your own feelings and those of others for motivating ourselves and managing our emotions in workplace and our relationship. This was given by Goldman in 1998. There are some dimensions of emotional intelligence in workplace that we will look forward to. So, some of the components of emotional intelligence at workplace is motivation, which is passion to work, go beyond just money and status, which is driven to achieve. I need to achieve my goals. I need to be committed to the organization. I love my work, so that passion needs to go beyond money and status. Then we have empathy, which is understanding people's problem like theirs, being very sensitive to other people's problem, not being very, very intellectually understanding them. Self-awareness, which is knowing your SWOT, strength, weakness, and threats, which is realistic expectations from yourself. And self-control, as we just stated, control over your emotions and moods, controlling your performances, being high self-efficacy, thinking before acting, trusting more, high integrity, and social skills, which is proficiency in working, managing other people. That is emotional intelligence. So social skills is extremely important. So all of this will be required in workplace, not only for you as an organization, but also for your people in the organization. So when we talk about emotional intelligence, remember today's emotional intelligence is high state than intelligent itself. People during interviews would look forward to you being motivated, would look forward to you being empathetic and socially very active and being self-aware, knowing that ability to bend and be flexible, understanding yourself and others. That's how you become a better worker in an organization. That completes with organization industrial psychology today. Hope the understanding of the entire unit has been great to all of you. Thank you, everyone.